Hello, and this is Jensen with Soft Edges, and we are doing the reading for the week ahead for June 8th through the 14th, 2026. It's stormy and rainy out. I've set up a little cozy space in the brightest part of the camper, so this is what we're working with today, but let's get right into the energy. So if you are someone who follows astrology or listens to some sorts of astrology, you will have heard that on June 9th is the most auspicious and one of the most beautiful alignments we have happening in 2026. And that's because Venus and Jupiter are coming together. And Venus, this planet of love and beauty and our connections and women and just all the sweetness, is coming together with Jupiter that is exalted or in its highest form in Jupiter, the planet of luck and expansion. They're coming together June 9th. What are you doing with this astrology? And what I mean is, if you pay attention, you might look where you have Cancer in your chart and then maybe like plant seeds in that part of your chart. For instance, I have one of my dearest friends who shared that during this alignment, it just happened to work out this way. She has Cancer in her third house of neighbors and community and local community. Cancer, this like nurturing, loving sign. She's going to a potluck with her community that she's hoping to build on this day. Beautiful example of how to work with this energy. Again, it's unintentional. So maybe just notice too, if you're not working with it, what's happening in your life at this time that's nurturing some part of your life. So that's really beautiful. There is a bunch of other stuff happening in the sky. I have my little Chani notebook. It's hard to remember. There's so much going on. It's hard to remember. So that's happening on the 9th. On the same day, Mercury is squaring Saturn, which is making me think of, what is this making me think of? Just bringing structure to the part of our chart that has Saturn currently, so Aries. Mercury is in Cancer, so it's like talking about our feelings. This is making me think of like seeking out a therapist, like finding ways to talk about this inner rage, this inner fire. I'm saying rage because Saturn is in Aries. It hates being in Aries. It's like giving me this energy of feeling like a fire that feels really contained, but it wants to run wild. So anyways, this is a really long way of saying on the same day that there's tons of sweetness, there is also potentially some friction, but it's just information of, again, a feeling state, talking about your feelings, bringing structure to our feelings, bringing some awareness to where we have like put boundaries around our emotions and how that might be creating issues in our life. I saw a post today about, what's his name? Gabor Mate. I'm totally butchering this. And I won't even put this in post notes, the right thing, but maybe I'll try. Talking about, the connection between people pleasing and autoimmune diseases. This feels like this is coded in here somewhere of where have you contained your emotions so much that it's creating inner friction within you, issues with your body, autoimmune diseases, things like that. I don't know why that's what's coming through right now. This portion's taking longer than I want, so I'm not going to run through the details of all of the rest of the astrology, but that's just on the 9th. That's Tuesday. On Friday the 12th, Uranus is squaring the lunar nodes, and then there's a new moon in Gemini on the 14th. That's Sunday. Yeah, what seeds are you planting that have to do with the Gemini portions of your chart? What was happening 6 months ago? What was falling away during the Gemini full moon during Sagittarius season that you're now starting to see, okay, now I have a clear slate in this area of my life again. What am I building again? So I'm going to do a top down of the energy of the week. But before I do, I'm just going to share, I pulled what we can expect for like the overall energy of our week. And it was very unexpected, especially because I was expecting something more fluffy and flowery given the beautiful astrology with the Venus Jupiter. And we got black and we got shadow. And also on the bottom of this deck that like popped out was this childlike card. Very interesting. I cannot find the guidebook for this amazing, amazing, amazing deck. I love this girl so much. Anyways, so I'm working intuitively here. With shadow and with this black card. And it's the one, right? It's like this fresh start. So when I was doing the like light weaving energy transmission in the beginning of this video, what was coming in is it was all black. And this is before I pulled cards. So it was cool. It worked out like this. It was all black. And I just saw like a wand, like the Ace of Wands energy, like something that is alive and wants to spark, right? Then I saw, think of like, you know, Plinko from, I was trying to think of how to describe this. Like, I was like, wow, what is this? So think Plinko from The Price is Right, where you like drop in a coin and it like goes down to, like different prizes or whatever, and you gain points. I don't know, whatever that is. So it was kind of like that, but it's like, there's so many paths that we could all be taking at this point. And I think we're so focused on choosing the right path that we're missing the magic in the in-between spaces. I think I need this message too. We're missing the magic in the in-between spaces. So in the darkness, we're missing the magic that happens when we wait for the spark of light. This isn't like seeking energy. I really feel like this is, and if you listen to Lee Harris, some of his messages for June feel really resonant now, where there's the like divine feminine is rising, and what that tells like what to do with this reading is it's saying something around like in the waiting and in the spaciousness of this in between, it allows us to be still enough to notice like, there's the spark. There's the thing that's lighting me up. There's the next thing, not the next right thing, just the next thing that you want to move towards that lights you up. This intro is long, but I think in this space, this like darkness, while we're waiting for the light, while we're waiting for our next steps, it feels dark and shadowy. It feels scary. We're having to reflect on ourselves. And I think that's part of this week's, a hummingbird. What a treat. What a treat. I should, I'm not going to do it right now. I'll do it when I do the top down, but hummingbird medicine, that is really, really sweet. I'll pull her into the next part of this reading. But all this to say, okay, it's just coming through. Okay, so hummingbird reminds us to follow the sweetness in life and not to get bogged down, like go straight for the sweetness, go straight for the nectar that's going to nourish us. We're not smelling all the flowers, like there is beauty in that, but right now we want to be really focused. So we're waiting in the dark, we're waiting for the next thing, but we have to be still enough to let that happen. And while we're waiting, we might we might encounter this week some things that feel uncomfortable. But know that it's all right on time. You have the skills to navigate this. The Mercury-Saturn square that's happening on Tuesday, maybe if you feel like you don't have the skills, you're meeting people, you're having good conversations that help you move this through. Interesting energy this week. I'm pretty stoked about it. And just to bring it back to like the Plinko of things shaking out, like sometimes you're just waiting to see where the chips fall. And that's where we are right now. I know that's uncomfortable. It's making us look at things we don't want to look at, especially like I said, with the childlike card at the bottom. Sorry, I'm just like looking. Like there's this person, he has the puppet on a string, and like this person's distracted. I think we've been really distracted. And I think that was like a learned behavior that we've been using for a really long time, probably from childhood. Anyways, this is really long. So much just wanting to move through this phase, but yeah, let's get to the overall energy, or this is the overall energy of the week. And let's get into like the nitty gritty of what's happening beginning, middle, and end of the week. And let's see what comes up for us. Hold in your heart that you can navigate this space and that it potentially will be uncomfortable and you'll potentially be up against things that you really don't like. Can you create a ritual around it? I love that there's like these candles. Light a candle, write yourself a letter, forgive yourself. Stop being palatable. There's so much aggression. Yeah, I'm eager. Let's see what else the cards have to offer for this upcoming week of June 8th through the 14th. Okay, so this is our very fancy setup. Again, this is the lighting I have in the camper, so we make do with what we have. The most important thing is the information. Okay, I'm really interested to see some of the stuff that's coming up this week. That's kind of a recurrence of what was happening last week. So again, we went over the black and the shadow and what this means to like go within and the transformation that's occurring and what comes up for us when we're in this waiting period of going from one form to another. So here we have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then this is just adding to, I think, the more general reading stuff, but I think a lot to our weekend energy, which I'll get into. So at the beginning of the week, we have, again, the Knight of Cups, who, if you remember, in last week's reading, there was an offer that was coming forward. And the Knight of Cups is stable and brings like some playfulness and some love. Yeah, it's like a knight in shining armor kind of energy. We got this came out together, like this on top of this, which tells me when this happens that there's like an undercurrent of something else happening. And we have the Seven of Swords. And the Seven of Swords is an energy that talks about things not being what they seem, like things being hidden or veiled. Right now, I wonder if I can like show you. Yeah, I'm gonna try. So right now there's like a shadow coming through the camper and it's like getting lighter and darker and lighter and darker. And what that's kind of saying to me as we're in this reading space is that this Knight of Cups character, this offer that comes forward in the beginning of the week, that maybe is a distraction of what you could be focusing on. And I'm kind of hearing that the Venus-Jupiter conjunction that is the most auspicious and positive of the year also has an undercurrent of idealization, like the way we want things to be and want things to look, which there's nothing wrong with that, but we're also living in reality. And the reality is something that comes forward in the beginning of the week is not all that it's cracked up to be. Just trying to see if there's anything else. Yeah, there's like masks, like someone is not being like totally truthful. Just pay attention. If something comes forward this week that's like a new offering or a new person or a way for you to, I don't know, make something easy in your life, especially like maybe emotionally, I'm going to say it's not what it's cracked up to be. And underneath is, what's the word that's coming through? Underneath is an onslaught of what you're going to have to deal with as the repercussions of following this if you choose to, because you might, and that's one choice, you know. Just know that it's not what it seems. But something that we can look forward to is by midweek we have the Knight of Coins, which this is such a stable energy. This is a really interesting depiction of the Knight of Coins because I don't picture the Knight of Coins on a horse, like first of all naked, and second of all on a horse that's moving so rapidly. So let's like get into that a little bit. Let me see. So this is coming in kind of like emotional. This reminds me of like sugar, sticky, sweet, like kind of sensual, getting sucked into. The Knight of Coins comes in as it's not the opposite of this, but it's the counterbalance to like the over sweetness. This makes more sense. So by midweek, whether you chose to partake in this distracting offer, it doesn't matter, because midweek comes in something that you're like, oh, there was another way to do this. Oh, there is another route to take. Oh, this is something that might take more time and energy, but is going to pay off when it's time to harvest. And I love that this is happening midweek, where we're kind of out of the maybe like dreamy energy of the Venus Jupiter of it all. And then by Wednesday, Thursday, we're like, okay, we're back on Earth. We have to get shit done. How are we moving forward? Because this is not as sustainable as this. By the weekend, we have the High Priestess, and I love this, with prudence. And right away, I got the energy of be very mindful with how you're spending your time and energy this weekend. I noticed how this high priestess is like in her own cocoon. And then we have this is how I'm reading this. There's like a pyramid and there's this camel, and there's something here about like taking a journey. It's an inward journey because it's the high priestess, right? So is there space for you this upcoming weekend? So what is that? The 13th and 14th for you to take a journey inward, be really mindful of your time and energy. I'm being called to notice right now this like graph, and it's making me think of like when you go to the hospital and it's like checking your heart rate. Like all of this might really rev you up this week, and a really good way to bring you back into balance is by spending the weekend alone if possible, taking an inward journey, lots of observation, and bringing yourself back into regulation. There's also an invitation here to eat more of like a Mediterranean diet, like vegetables, greens, things that are going to bring you, that are light and bring you back into stability. And the reason why I'm saying stability is I'm noticing a 4 in this card right here. And what is prudence? Prudence, is like to be prude, to like really, like I said, be intentional, be mindful about what you're doing with your energy. There is something here too with the 7 of Swords earlier in the week, like potentials for, if you're being really porous, if you're feeling really porous, it's easy for psychic attacks to happen. And I'm seeing that with like the 7 of Swords, this like tempting offer earlier in the week. If you had like intentionally or unintentionally given into this energy, this is the weekend where you're potentially healing from whatever transpired. Then you had the grounding person thing. I don't know if this is like therapy or grounding foods or a project or someone that comes in and offers some sort of like stable movement forward that like shows you the path. Like, okay, here's the path. So if we're in the darkness, if we're sitting in this energy of what's happening next, first we could potentially get like, oh, this is the path to take. And then very quickly you'll find like, oh, I ended up at a dead end, or I'm looped back in the maze back to where I started. And that's not like where I want to be. Maybe this is habits. Maybe you're looking at habits this week. And then the Knight of Coins comes in and says like, I'll take you through the maze and I'll help you. So again, this is a person, this is an idea, this is a project, this is your intuition, something that's more stable and is probably the longer route or the longer view, the longer option, but the most stable. And then the High Priestess for the weekend is us recalibrating this energy, sitting with this shadow, sitting with the conditioning, where we are in our process, writing letters to ourselves and other people. Invitation for some ritual this weekend if that feels aligned. All right, this is what I'm seeing for the week of June 8th to the 14th. Good luck, and I'll see you on the other side.